You are listening to Wicked Psychotherapists, a podcast where two psychotherapists show you that taking care of and learning about mental health doesn't have to be wicked hard.
Hey everyone, this is Tanya.
Hi, this is Erin, and welcome to Wicked Psychotherapists.
So today we are going to be diving into the world of high school. If you are currently in high school, have just gotten out of high school, have been far enough away from it to be able to have forgotten many elements of it, like Erin and myself, may all feel differently to you. And taking a look at what these four years, hopefully, I don't know, maybe some 5 years, I don't know, or 3 or something.
6 years. Some people may have different plans. Yeah.
Maybe 6 years. Yeah, let's just say that. That what it may have looked like as a lasting impact or what kind of impression it's left with you, things that you feel may have developed core memory, or maybe it wasn't that impactful for you and what the differences are. So I think that the thing that we really want to talk about is why so many people place so much importance on high school. What is it about high school that makes it such a defining time for us? What do you think are some of those aspects that contribute to that?
Well, I mean, it's funny because in the past I don't know if we've done more than one episode on high school experiences. I know we talked about, oh my God, my brain. I know we talked about the Breakfast Club. And I feel like we've even talked about other 80s, 70s movies like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and other things where they tend to focus on the different groups in high school and how people typically experience high school and what it is. And yeah, those 4 years, it is kind of interesting because you think you're entering so young. Because when you look at what a 14-year-old looks like or who is a 14-year-old, you're just like a little kid.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you're leaving 18 years old or maybe even older. So it is quite a pivotal 4 years of your life where you could be figuring out who you are, what you want to do for the rest of your life, your friends group, your style, all that different things can really start evolving in that 4 years. And that could be one of the reasons why people tend to hang on to it or it becomes their identity in a sense.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of discovery during this era. So probably some of the first times you will be pushing boundaries against your parents, caregivers, even though there's probably been some other things leading up to this is kind of that first time where there's a setting for it, right? To developmentally explore what are my interests? What are things that I might want to do with my own future career-wise, or what types of people do I like? Who do I like to define myself as? What do I like to dress as? Am I into, and this is going to show my age, am I in the emo group? Do I tend to gravitate towards a particular group? Am I not in a group? Do I feel kind of like I get along with multiple groups of people? Because we all know in high school, there definitely can be divisions. Maybe it's, I don't know, I guess, depending on regional and other generational factors, this may be not as delineated as it used to be, at least from what I remember, that there were different cliques, people who were quote unquote the preps or like the jocks or, the popular kids. And I know I sound very old. This is the way it was.
The squares. Yeah.
Like the people who were like smart but popular, maybe the kids are kind of smart but not so popular, the goth or emo gators, kind of that type of thing. That was just my generation, of people. And I'm talking, I went to school in the late 90s, early 2000s, for high school. And I think you're really trying to figure out and say, what are my values? What do I stand for? Or what do I want to be? How do I want to represent myself in this world? And this is where you kind of have a little more freedom to start doing that, as opposed to like, oh, I like this because my mom brings me here, or like, I've told them I like this, so they're going to get me this kind of thing. Like you have a little more control over this time.
Well, and it becomes more peer driven too at that age. Yeah. In middle school, you're starting to have that separation of, like you're still really tied into your family unit, which people are, if they have healthy families, hopefully forever, but you start having that separation a little bit more in high school, where here are people who might have similar interests, who accept me for who I am. And that can be very empowering and very freeing too, if you haven't ever experienced that before, or if you grew up in a family unit that was judgmental or you felt unsafe there too. So high school can be a safety for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is something, it starts to build your character. It starts to build who you are as an individual and feel okay developing some of these aspects. You find out who you are as a person, an individual. And so it can be really exciting, can be really traumatic, it can be really scary. Yeah, it's a lot of different things, but it certainly is, I think, something that does stick with us. Maybe not as much as some people, like to a less degree, but there's a lot of, I think, core memories and experiences that maybe are from that particular time period. Maybe not everyone, but it usually can be a time for that. And I do think there are people who maybe this was like their peak, right? This is something where maybe they just loved high school. They loved the friendships. Some people peak at different periods, but this is a time they may want to go back to a lot. Maybe they stayed in the same town or maybe they didn't. And this is a period where it was just like, oh, they had all their friends. They were able to discover this stuff. It was a great time. They felt free. And like they were able to kind of discover all these things within, a safety net of feeling like, okay, this is a time where I can kind of mess up, but it's maybe of me or allowed a little bit, a little more socially accepted.
Yeah. And if you got in trouble or anything, it is a safety net. I mean, you might end up having detention or something like that, but it's not like you're going to get fired from your job or anything. It's not as big of a deal as it would be when you become an adult.
Yeah. Not as high stakes, something where it's something where you can learn from that, and hopefully grow from that. To say, okay, maybe I shouldn't get out the window and skip, some of the name period or whatever, I just got a detention or suspension or whatever, but I didn't get fired from my job because they saw me leaving,
Can you imagine doing that? Because
jump out the window.
Oh my gosh, there's been so many jobs that I've wanted to jump out the window of, but
me too. Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely picture that. And I definitely have had that.
No, but I remember in high school, because we had an open campus and sneaking off or just running into the woods to leave to go somewhere to skip a couple classes. Yeah, I can't imagine doing that in like a job.
Yeah. And I have to say, I think there are some people who were very well behaved and maybe academically inclined or just never really got in trouble for various reasons. And then maybe didn't learn those lessons, maybe learned it in college. And it was a little bit of a harder fall because there's a little more at play.
You're paying for your classes. Yeah.
And I would have to say I think I was one of those that I definitely was somebody who I always tried to stay in the background. So I just tried to do everything right to not have attention on me. But I burned out and, there were some things that came back and bit me in college and maybe a little bit beyond that.
Yeah.
That I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
I think it's safer to do it in high school and it's better to do it in high school.
Yeah. It's probably not better to do it either. But yeah, I definitely was probably pushing the envelope kid in high school. And Again, I know everyone probably knows everything about my family now, but I think it was also from just seeing what I can get away with or just the negative attention or something. So I probably did push the envelope a little bit more, or who knows what was wrong with me as a kid,
Well, it's probably, it could have been a way to get attention. It could have been, that maybe kind of saying, hey, there's something going on here and I don't know how to express it. And this is okay to do here, or it seems like it, or my friends are doing it,
Yeah. Or my parents aren't even going to notice or care either way.
Yeah. I think, similarly for myself, I had two sisters right above me that I think expressed and were a handful and were always kind of needing a lot of attention. So I took the opposite kind of road of like, I can't put this on my mom and I just can't be seen at all because this is just too much. And I see what it does to other people, but it they have their own reasons as well.
Yeah. I was that way probably elementary through middle. And then I think in high school, I just started to get my voice a little bit and just, I don't know. I think for me, it was probably the finding my people and just feeling safe.
Yeah. I don't think I ever really found people I felt safe with. I just never really trusted anybody because there was, always back to family stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it probably still affects me to this day. I still don't really trust people and still don't really have a good feel about, kind of like socially and otherwise that things will be okay.
Yeah.
That it's always, I have to be good or I have to be this or else I'm just nothing. And
Yeah.
I'm the worst. That was kind of like a big like family dynamic where I usually was just nothing.
Yeah. If you're not getting that support or you're not having a parent when you are leaving for high school or coming home asking you, how was your day? What are you struggling or with? Or what are your big wins? How would you know how to express yourself or why would you want to,
Right. Yeah.
if you don't
Yeah.
feel safe at home?
And some people don't have that safety, they don't have that support, and they don't have a structure, right? Like, not having something where you can experience something. Like I remember in high school feeling this can sound weird, but I was jealous of people who had like curfews. And I was like, oh,
Hmm.
you're like that means your parents are involved and like
Yeah.
care about these things. But like to me, I could be out for days and
Yeah.
I,
Same.
I knew my mom knew I was probably at my friend Catherine's house. That was usually where I was. But the lack of having structure is really not a good thing when you already
Hmm.
feel like you're not very visible. That was not something that was like oppressive to me and like, oh my gosh, it was like I wish somebody would have cared to
Hmm.
be like, oh hey, like maybe don't do this. So like this is for your safety. Because to me, I just kept thinking, wow, like how lucky are they? If they have parents that would set a
Yeah.
structure for them.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I remember, like, especially when it came to the age where friends drove or older friends drove, which that in itself, it's like, but again, it was the 90s. Parents don't really, when I was in high school, early 90s, maybe you shouldn't be hanging out with that senior or the person that just graduated high school that's picking you up. Like, you would think, like, parents would be like, okay, and have a curfew and do your homework. And, so that's the type of stuff. If I had a time machine and went back, I wish I did have a little more structure in that sense, as far as somebody, I guess, looking out for me in a sense like that. Like just kind of saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't go out every night, or where are you going, or what are you doing? And it's weird that you've never had homework all year,
Yeah.
or something, or, just to be seen or just to notice.
Yeah. I think it shows up in different ways and people act out in different ways, right? And that can be definitely a time to express it. Or I think there's a lot of teens and people in high school that and again, these are the people I was so jealous of. They wanted to do these like normal things that I couldn't even fathom wanting to do because it's like if you grew up with support and like normal socializing and things like that, you want to do these things. You naturally, it's healthy to want to rebel and kind of
Yeah.
be like, okay, I do want to do some of these things. Like I want to stay out late at night. I want to do this and I want to do that. And I just remember, that would be like kids' like biggest complaints. And I was just like, I wish I had. That means that you're healthy. Like I just remember
Yeah.
I knew that even back then. I had a very bizarre,
Yeah.
like I was very much adult. I was like,
Yeah.
I just felt very much on my own.
Yeah.
And
Trauma ages you too when you're younger. And
yeah,
because you've seen stuff and you've experienced a lot of other things than most of your peers probably have. I know I did not probably have like a very, I don't know, even know how to say it, like just, I guess, a very healthy, trauma free upbringing, but I didn't want to stay home. I wanted to leave. And I felt like I had to either be gone at high school or be gone out of the house before anyone came home, or, because for me, there was a lot of alcoholism in the house and I just wanted to not be home for that. And I knew that for my part of me, my undeveloped brain knew that I needed to escape it to something else, whether it was school or friends or something. But I did not feel safe being at home, which I was very jealous of friends that had houses that we can go to and hang out and and their parents would have cookies and they would have it was like, oh my gosh, this is like so normal. They'd be like, oh, it's so boring, or something. It's like, oh my gosh, I love this.
Yeah, remember that too. I crave stability. I could not relate to people who were like, my parents will let me stay out past a certain time. And I'd be like, I wish my mom
Yeah,
do
noticed.
stuff like that. Or that I wanted to do that because I crave stability because I'm a little old lady here.
Yeah.
And, this is what I need stability. I don't need, it's not normal. It's not normal. That's that.
Yeah.
You grow up too fast.
Yeah. And I think that's why now, as an adult, or even when I was in my 20s, 30s, I was like, I am staying home forever. And I think that's why I like to be home, and I feel safe and I feel happy because I've created a house and I have a family that makes me feel safe and happy, and, Paige, but I feel safe. I don't feel like I have to run away. That for me is very much very telling of that I've created the life I want. And yeah, of course, there's still other wants and needs and stuff. I mean, I think that always evolves and changes. But I think for me, the hierarchy of needs, I think, I have the first two or three, I definitely have like my shelter and home, and I feel safe.
And those are big things. And you were able to break that cycle of that. And that's a huge thing. Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that's why I love working at home, even though I know there can be some downsides, but I don't think I can. I think even working at a different place didn't feel like, even being out in other places didn't feel safe for me for a while. It still doesn't, honestly.
Yeah. I think I know we're jumping from high school to jobs and stuff, but it is all connected. But I feel that at different jobs and different things, it was difficult for me sometimes with like different groups of people, just because I think we've talked in other things. I like to chat a lot, but then I think it's the high anxiety, high trauma from childhood or whatever, that I tend to be hyper aware of the good of people or the ill intent of coworkers or bosses and stuff. So it's always been very difficult for me I don't play well with others, I guess, or I don't work well. I don't work well in groups. I don't know. It's very difficult for me. And, so it's good working alone. So I don't have to worry about what other people are thinking or feeling. And I don't always have this paranoid thing, but just it is difficult when you work in a large company.
Yeah.
And people do get very cliquey. And you might not have a boss that's very kind or something like that. So I've experienced that. So for me, working from home is nice and it makes me happy. Where, like, going back in high school and stuff, yeah, you are forced. They always force you to work in groups, or they force you to do stuff, or you're in different classes with people that you would never socialize with before, but all of a sudden you're together, or your homeroom. I don't know if they did homeroom for you with by last name. Yeah. For us, it was like, so my last name was MC. So I always was like, those people really got to know all the M's and N's.
I don't know if we didn't do it by like alphabetically, but we did homeroom. I think it was just actually.
Yeah. I think ours was last name, at least I believe just the first few years was like last names.
Yeah. And I mean, this is, it's so true. It's like how high school can continue to have its echoes in the rest of your life, right? Is what you're saying. Like, even in your working life. And, that makes me think about people, like how your relationship with how you feel or think or perceive high school can change in different decades too. Like, maybe in your 20s, and I'm just giving this as an example. I'm not saying this is everyone, but just, in your 20s, it may kind of feel like you're a little more attached to it. You kind of maybe follow it a little more, especially with social media. In your 30s, maybe it's not as much. Maybe you still have like a close group of friends. Maybe you don't. Maybe you kind of separated from them. And then it feels like it kind of gets more distant, unless you're just, you have this core group that you all just kind of stay connected. Mm-hmm. But I think it can certainly shift throughout the decade, like your perception of it. And maybe you can let go of some things that maybe you always felt like you weren't good enough, or you weren't smart enough, or you weren't popular enough, or you weren't, I don't know, talented enough. And maybe you start to feel that validation in your life, in general. And so maybe you kind of let go of some of those things. And then there's people who maybe unfortunately can't, and maybe reside in some of those, kind of like they socially still, if they see you, they're asking you about things back when you were 10 or 15 and you don't even remember.
Oh my God, that's so weird when you say that. But when I think of going back, they get like, oh my gosh, that was over 30 years ago. Like just yeah, some people are still stuck in that. Like, it's funny. My brother and I talk about that sometime because where we grew up in a small town in New England, and some people stay there, some people move away. But it seems like some of the people my brother was talking about, some people he still knows or hears about are still doing the same things that they did in high school and still the same people. And, so, where a lot of people have evolved and changed and, we grow up and we're still appreciative of our friendships. Like I have, a couple of best friends still that are from high school. And I think we've evolved, but we're still friends, but we've changed. We all
Right.
changed. But yeah, but
Yeah.
there are still so many people that just, not just even like the quarterback who's like, yeah, that was my best 4 years of my life. But it's like some people just stay and they still keep repeating the same patterns. And I don't know if because they surround themselves with people that keep repeating the same patterns. So nobody really grows.
Yeah. And they maybe stay in the same environment. And so it gets reinforced and they kind of think, oh, those other people, they're weird or maybe it
Yeah.
doesn't appeal to them or they think it's like,
They're sellouts. They think they're better than
like
us.
phony or
Yeah.
something, which is, I have heard when I was in my 20s, I would hear some people like they would message me, of course, and kind of be like, oh, like, when did this happen with you? Or, kind of, like kind of surprised about these things. And I'm thinking like, when we grow up, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
It's just, it's interesting. Sometimes, like, that time can really help to define for some people, and they really are just in it. And I don't know if that's, like you said, like they just don't have other experiences, or maybe they just are in love with the things that they discover about themselves.
Mhm.
But I think it's an interesting thing because high school it can help you to start to see who you are. Personally, I feel like I was just trying to jump out of there and escape. And like, I thought there was some magic formula to like, once I get out of here, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh, I got to figure it out. And it was a big fat mess. I think you're always evolved as a
Mhm.
person. I think, of course, there's things that, during that time, they're going to stick with you. But
Yeah.
I think it kind of just depends on your own experiences. Yeah, but I think it can be something where, it really depends on the trajectory your life takes, your outlook on who you are as people. Some people feel like, oh, these are the types of people that I want to be friends with. This is what I was in high school, and this is who I am, and this is who everybody else is. And that's the way they're comfortable defining
Yeah.
life. And personally, I think that's really, I don't know, like, I don't maybe this is judgmental, but I'll say it. I feel like it's not really taking any
Yeah.
risks. You're not really growing. You're not really trying
Yeah.
other things. And
Yeah.
it's not that you can't stay friends with people, but I mean, life is for living and growing
Yeah.
and discovering.
Yeah, and it is interesting too, because especially in high school, you find people who you feel might have your same creativeness or like the same music or different things. And often we get attracted to them because maybe they're not conforming the way everyone else is or something, but then in a sense, we're all conforming to whichever group we decide to stay with. And if we stay with them completely forever, it's really hard to see other things or to have other interests or views. Or I do feel like I'm still the same person because I still have a lot of the same thoughts and personality and humor and stuff, because that's still probably, because sometimes I still have 14-year-old humor, but that hasn't evolved all the time. But I do feel though there's been different variations of myself, and I feel like I have evolved through every event, big life event or small life event that's happened to me over the course of the years and decades that have happened since I left high school. And I feel like I'm always changing, and I hope that I'm always evolving and changing. And those experiences did happen, and they did shape me, and some were good, some were bad, some, but I feel as though all of those did help shape me who I am. I mean, yeah, I could have done without probably a big chunk of them or had them a little differently or had different support or different encouragement in different fronts, whether it be at home or sought different ways for support. But I probably didn't know better or I wasn't shown. But I think that experience from high school has taught me to seek it out or to be the cheerleader or that person for other people now and myself.
Yeah, which seems like a good, if you didn't have that ideal high school experience, which I don't know many people that have, but there are some, that seems like the best kind of route to be able to, I think, grow and make the best out of these situations that can be really tough. And yeah, and I know we're kind of running up on time here, but I just wanted to see, if you wanted to say like how you think you would define yourself in high school, like if there were a
Oh,
couple words or in a group, like how would you say?
well,
Just
I
so,
don't think you and I,
let the people know.
from what you described, I think I'd probably be the person you would have been really annoyed at. Like I was probably really,
I wasn't annoyed by much. I just ignored
oh,
people. I was just by
I'd say
myself.
loud, annoying. And I tend to hang out with like punk rock skater people, and I smoked a lot of cigarettes because we had an open campus and we could smoke cigarettes. And I tend to choose all of the different electives that were more fun than things I'd get out of, like, more. Yeah, I tried to have fun. And I think I just tried to, I don't know. I feel as though I didn't get a lot academically out of high school. I feel like it was more of an experience for me because it was a good way for me to see my friends and people that I really cared about. And, it's interesting. I'm going to give a shout out to one of my friends who listens, my friend Jay. He and I were talking recently, and this is what made me tell Tanya, like, let's talk about like high school. Cause sometimes even talking about some of the people that I experienced in high school or different things still gives me a tinge of like, ugh. Like, sometimes it still gives me a little bit of anxiety. Sometimes I still get really excited and happy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how is that still affecting me for so long? Or why am I still having those feelings? And, and I don't know. But yeah, I feel as though, I guess I always liked like, gothy music and punk rock and stuff. So I guess that would be classified and probably a stoner. Yeah. I guess.
And I think that's really cool that you had experiences over because I don't think you missed out on much academically.
Yeah. I was probably like the bottom. I was not the valedictorian, but it took me a few years to figure out who I was and what I wanted to be post graduation. I think I was just still experimenting and just trying to figure out who I am and what I wanted to be and how I wanted to be an adult. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's, I think a lot of people can relate to that for high school, like that's something you're really trying to figure out, and I would say I really didn't have a definition in high school. I was really trying to just get good grades, and not because I was good and not because all the teachers loved me, because they probably didn't even know who I was. I was just trying to get away and figure something else out for myself. I thought the answers were out there, and I needed a vehicle to get out. And so that's what high school was to me. And so there was a lot missed.
Yeah.
And so I was maybe just considered like in the smart crowd because I got good grades, but that was just a means to an end to run away from all this trauma and to figure out. And I thought, it's out there somewhere, the answer, but I didn't realize, I got to sift through this.
See,
later on.
I don't think I really realized that would be a means to an end until I was like, oh crap, I'm like 20 something. What am I going to do? But I think for me, again, lack of parental guidance.
Oh, I definitely didn't have that from any parent. It was very much just
it was you. You were super driven.
It wasn't like it was a drive to be like, I don't want this. So my life, I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was the right direction though, because I definitely crashed and burned and it wasn't.
Yeah.
I didn't explore some of the other things. That wasn't good. But, I think looking from the outside in, some people I went to high school probably just thought I was just, came from a normal family and just had that support to get good grades and was well behaved. And that was.
Yeah. Not realizing that you were the one probably sitting at your desk or your table at home, just making sure that you did everything and got the right grades, where there wasn't the parents telling you that you're doing a good job or encouraging you.
I was just obsessing over everything. I thought everything had to be perfect so I could give myself a chance. Like it was just this thing and me. I thought that was the only way out, that I had it figured out.
Yeah.
And
do you feel as though the 4 years of high school was a defining factor of who you are today? Where, we have talked about different shows and different things and in the past, and how some people are stuck on, they go to the reunions and they do the different things. And do you feel even the academic experience, do you feel like so, yeah, that was pretty pivotal, or yeah, I could have done without
I
it.
don't feel super attached to it. I think academically, I thought that since I had been my whole life like a straight A, like perfectionistic student, that I had to uphold that. It took me a long time to get rid of that and to realize, like, oh wait, I was doing that out of trauma, and that actually was not good, and that doesn't mean that's who I am.
Yeah.
And so, in that regard, like, kind of a reaction against it, I think, and kind of realizing, oh, I wish I had discovered more of who I was. Like I did figure some things out, but they were not as much, of an effort as academia and stuff. So I don't know. Like in a way, yeah, it was, but in another way, I had to like really reroute myself.
Yeah.
I still do sometimes. Still is, but it's definitely way more settled now. Way more that I don't care if somebody were to be like you used to be like a straight A student. And like, I mean, it's not like I don't know what I would be doing that people would say I'm not a straight. I don't know. Like, I don't know what that would be, but if it didn't fit their mold of who
Yeah.
I am, like, I would just be like, okay, that's your life.
Yeah.
That's your
You don't
brain.
even know
It's not,
me.
you're still
Yeah.
living there.
Yeah. You don't know who the real me is,
Yeah.
which, yeah, it's hard to,
Yeah.
yeah, that is hard to have people understand, who you are today versus who you were or who they thought you were.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I didn't even know myself. So like, how could you have known me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was running scared on like trauma fumes. So it was not,
Hmm.
as I'm sure a lot of people were, you know what I mean? Like in different
Yeah. And they
ways.
probably were. I mean,
So
like, yeah, imagine all the people who we don't know what was really going on and they just had these different personas.
yeah. It's just the ones that annoy me that are you're doing something, you're being fake or phony. Like I mean, especially I haven't heard it in probably like, a little bit, you know what I mean? But I haven't heard it like fairly recently, but eh, there's people that, like in 30s and stuff that I'm like, are you kidding me? Like
Hmm.
you're still thinking this is how life is? You're not even gonna say like, oh hey, are you still like this or what's going on with you? And like try to get reintroduced. You're just gonna
Yeah.
assume things are the same. It's a little weird to me.
Yeah.
That's kind of strange.
Yeah. It's like time stopped.
But yeah, and maybe for them it
Yeah.
did. And that's I mean, if that works for them, fine, but it doesn't work for
Yeah.
me. I don't want to be in that
Well, and
place.
also,
I'm
it
not.
takes effort if you're reconnecting with somebody, especially from decades, to get to know who they are
Yeah.
now and just not who they were in 10th or 11th, 12th grade, because, like you said, like life happens. People evolve, people change.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of things can, affect you in high school or can maybe, I don't know, maybe some of you are still there. And again, there's no judgment. It's just a matter of knowing that, you know, I do think we are here to grow and to evolve. So I think it might be worth it to kind of go outside of, maybe the place where you lived or the mindset or hobbies or people that it's always worth it to discover because there really is a whole world out there. And just
Yeah.
being who you are in high school and the same types of people being around them
Yeah. Or
makes
challenge yourself.
that makes
Yeah.
for a very small bubble. Yeah. But yeah, let us know what you think about this because there's a lot of, I know that this is this may be closer to some than others, or it may be further away, like just for us,
Hmm.
and we have a different perspective, or even further away for some other people that are listening. But let us know what your perspective is and what you feel about that and how you see that. And if you've experienced some of the same things, or, there's some other things we didn't bring up. But
Yeah.
yeah. So we hope you enjoyed this.
Hmm.
And, just don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wicked Psychotherapists, on Facebook. We are the Wicked Psychotherapists. Subscribe, follow wherever you listen to podcasts, and rate us a review. That helps
Yep.
us.
Yep. Thank you for the reviews we have.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are really great. We appreciate them. And don't forget, stay wicked.
And keep your mind well. All right. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Stop it.
All right.